Hello.
Are you right?
I'd like to start off by just asking you to talk a little bit about your work, because there'll be people listening to this who won't be as familiar with your work as obviously I am.
Yeah. I suppose I would consider myself a conceptual artist, to be honest. Um, I like working with concepts, ideas. I like creating them. I like exploring them, expanding them, developing them, and I just like the fact that you you can just take an idea and develop it into whatever. I mean, a lot of my work is 3D and sculptural, but I wouldn't consider myself a sculptor. I probably consider myself more multidisciplined artist. That's down to me working with the idea and the concept as the main key element to my work, and then developing everything else around it. So the process and the materials and the making becomes kind of second to the idea.
Yeah, I mean that was only a brief insight. I mean, could you maybe develop a little bit more on how you work? I mean, just expand on the way that you kind of develop your concepts.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, it's multidisciplined, but that's down to um, that's down to me working with the concept as the key factor. So when I think of an idea that I like and I think has got the legs to be developed into something, into a piece, then I'll sit down and I'll basically just sit there and think about it, and maybe that's 2, 3, 4, maybe a couple of weeks of just mulling over this idea, and eventually you start to develop the way in which you're going to start off, and the way you're going to kind of kick off this idea, and then everything else just kind of falls into place. So that's why I was saying about the multidiscipline, that I don't like to just tie myself down to one way of working, because then that kind of forces your concept down that avenue, and I like to I like it to go wherever it needs to go, um, rather than pushing it. And I think that's the key. One of the key things for me is to allow the idea to develop in its own way. I think that is what is important.
So, I mean, you say the concept's the integral part to your work. I mean, is there anything else that is important within your work?
Uh, well, as I said before, I mean, I don't try forcing um, things into my work, because I think as soon as you do, I get frustrated because it's not right. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't sit right. You know, and then I'll tinker about with it, and I can never get it right. And that's why I like it to kind of go on its own accord. I mean, there's stuff that pops up. I mean, like there's always an element of humour. Well, not always, but the majority of them, there's an element of humour in a lot of my work, and that wasn't something that I put in purposely. Um, it's something that kind of developed. I didn't realise that I was doing it, to be honest, at the start. It just seemed to happen, but I think that's kind of down to me. I mean, I like stuff that makes me laugh. I like stuff that kind of makes me smile. And I think that's how it develops. Is that maybe I'm not constantly thinking about making something funny, and maybe it just kind of happens a bit naturally. But I think that kind of makes it better because then, as I said before, it's not forced. It's the same as subtlety. I mean, I always like elements of subtlety with my work, but only after I've actually sat back and reflected on it that I see the elements of subtlety in there. And that's the same. I mean, I don't think you can really try and put something subtle into a piece of work because I don't think it, or I personally can't do that because it doesn't quite work, and it's the same as humour. It just seems a bit false and a bit like you're trying a bit too hard to get these elements in, and I don't think that helps the work or improves the work. I think it, as I said before, it needs to find its own course.
Yeah. So these changes within your work. I mean, what changes has your practice gone through?
Well, I think over the past 5 years, I think my work's changed. I think it's become more sophisticated. I think that's down to thinking more about my work. Whereas before, I think I was solely just thinking about the idea, and and I'd sit back and reflect. But that reflection was kind of limited. I think now I'm kind of reflecting, and it's in more depth, and I think I'm thinking more about the audience, and how the audience views my work, and I think that's helping to develop my work into something is a bit more sophisticated, is a bit more, but that will always happen because the more you learn, the more your work is going to add to your work, and I think your work will always develop, and it's something that I always try and do, and I said it before that your work should develop, your work should reflect on your surroundings. Your surroundings is constantly developing, so then why shouldn't your work? It should do.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the audience. I mean, what role does your work and you have in society, in your surroundings?
Do you mean in the surroundings or within the surroundings of an exhibition?
Well, both really. I mean, what within an exhibition kind of atmosphere and within society in a whole. I mean, what kind of role do you think your work and you play?
Well, I'm not too sure what kind of role I play within society. I mean, I think my work, it should be a commentary. I mean, hopefully it's a commentary of society and my surroundings. But I mean, I think within an exhibition kind of hopefully people laugh at the quirks within an exhibition kind of atmosphere, and I hope they kind of get the jokes and the concepts and the ideas. So I hope they go away feeling like it was worth coming to be honest. But that's one thing that I need to do more of. I need to do more exhibitions. I need to get my work out there more. I mean, I think not my work, but I think I've been a bit too much. Trying to think of the word. Oh, what's the word?
Introverted.
Yeah. Introvert. Cheers. Yeah, I think I've become more introverted about my work, and I think that's not. Well, it's something I need to address, and I think that may be part of because of my personality. I think I am a little bit like that. I do like taking the backseat. I don't like being this attention grabber.
Yeah, I mean, I've known you for a long time, and you never seem like that.
Well, I don't think I am, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that's kind of my personality.
No, I don't think it is either. I mean, another thing I wanted to ask you was, what kind of themes do you pursue within your art and your pieces?
Well, we've already stated humour before. I mean, that was something I started to look into more recently. But there's also the elements like language and politics. You know that some of my works. I mean, I did recently pieces on the word "it's." You know, using English language. I think there's a lot of words within the English language that people take for granted, and I think it is one of them. It's kind of a beautiful word. You know, it means everything and nothing at the same time. And this is getting back to looking more closely at things and things that are getting taken for granted. That you just kind of, we all do it. I mean, I do it, and I've sat down and tried thinking about things more deeply. And I think this is the same as I was saying before about the progression of my work. Is that it's developing because I think I'm taking more a critical view of pretty much everything, to be honest. Um, I mean, one thing that I've recently, when I've looked into my work, is that I've realised that it's all about value, a certain type of value within my work that I'm trying to get across. You know, or I'm trying to say something about a value or what people's values on something. And this is something I'm looking into quite recently, and I think it's something that maybe my next piece will be about values. My next exhibition will be about values, because I think it's quite hard, but then quite nice to sit down and try and write down what values you have as not only as an artist but as the audience as well. So when you go into a gallery and you go to an exhibition, what kind of set of values do you take within that gallery space? It's kind of different set of values that you take into your own exhibition, you know, and that's something that I'm getting quite interested in at the moment, and I want to kind of develop that a little bit more.
So, what would you say you identify with?
Well, I think mainly myself. um,
I think I can agree with that.
uh, yeah, I mean, every artist identifies with himself. I mean, all the artwork is about themselves. And you know, I'm not narcissistic or well, I'm not. But I think when you create an artwork, I think it is subconsciously narcissistic. I think it is all about you. It's all about your opinions and, like I was saying before, your values. And I mean, this is what I identify. I mean, I do try to be open-minded and think about everything. Well, not everything, but you know, the majority of things. But yeah, I think the main thing I do identify with is myself, and it's took me a while to realise that. But I think that's true. I think, like I said before, it's art is all about yourself and about your surroundings.
Right, I think that's all we got time for. I mean, thank you for giving the interview.
Thanks for interviewing me. Cheers.